Hi, this is Russ Ballard, and you're listening to the Voices of Russ Ballard podcast.
Hello, I'm Chris White, and you're listening to the Voices of Russ Ballard podcast.
And this will be our year, took a long time to come. Don't let go of my hand now, the darkness.
So welcome back again to the Voices of Russ Ballard podcast with me, Ian Street, and a very, very happy 2025 to all of our listeners. I really do hope that this will be your year. See what I did there? And on that note, we have another fantastic guest for you on the show today, someone who's had a massive link with Russ over the years. So let's get on with the usual intro and get to meet him, shall we? What do you think?
Ooh, that's fine.
So here on the Voices of Russ Ballard, we're on the air tonight, and there's so much more to cover. We've still got the hunger, and the best is yet to come. So let's begin here, shall we? I've been hung up on the dream for this gentleman to come on the show, even though he's miles away. And it's certainly my pleasure to introduce him. He's always a smooth operator and a wonderful singer. And as for his voice, it's magical. However, time's running out on my intro now, so without a shadow of a doubt and without further ado, a very, very warm welcome to Colin Blunstone, ladies and gentlemen.
Ian, thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. I recognised all of those titles from over my, whatever it is, 60-year career. I think you've covered most of the records I've ever made.
There's 13 songs there.
Oh, really? Brilliant.
Yeah. Really, it's fantastic to have you on, Colin, because there's so, apart from, personally, I've always loved your music, but there's so many synergies with Russ over the years as well. And we'll talk about some of those later when Russ comes on. But it's fantastic to have another Rock and Roll Hall of Fame member. And I'm going to quote Susanna Hoffs of the Bangles. It's wondrous, talking about your voice, by the way. It's wondrous, she said. The tone and timbre, I've not heard that word before. I'm going to look it up. Of it is like silk, velvet and linen woven through each and every syllable you sing. Your voice is just plain sexy. Well, that's not a bad intro, was it really?
I know. I was there when she said that. When Susanna Hoffs says your voice is just plain sexy, it's difficult to know how to respond.
Yeah.
But I think it's incredible that she should be so complimentary about my voice. Of course, she's a wonderful artist in her own right, and that she should be so into the Zombies and in particular into my voice. It's absolutely fantastic.
And Elvis was into your voice as well, because he had 3 of your records on his jukebox. He clearly had a burning love for the Zombies.
I'm just a hunker burning love. Just a hunker burning love.
Sorry.
Well, it would appear, he certainly listened to our music anyway. And that's fantastic. We've gone around his house a couple of times, and the first time, sadly, he wasn't there. We were with a DJ in Memphis, isn't it, where he lives? I get a bit confused in America. And this DJ was doing an interview, and he said, "Do you want to go and see Elvis afterwards?" It's like, do you want to go around and see my pal Bill afterwards? We said, well, be all right. Try not to get too carried away. And so we went up to his house. Literally, there was no security at all. Graceland, and knocked on the front door. You could do that in the 60s, and we're never quite sure if it's his dad or his uncle came to the door and had a long chat with us and said, "Elvis would love to see you, but he's in Hawaii shooting his latest film, and so he's not here, but if you want to just have a look around and wander around." So he just left us to wander around, and it was quite an experience. I would love to have met him. Unfortunately, I never did. Went back years later, and again, we just wandered around, and it was very, very different, though. I mean, it was like a theme park. It wasn't how it was when Elvis lived there, but it's still, very interesting.
I mean, we had Leo Sayer on the show, and have you? I don't know whether you heard the story about him being the last person to speak to Elvis when he was alive. Yeah, he tells the story without going into too much detail, but basically, he was a fan, and when Leo fell off the stage at a sound check and was so badly hurt that he got not a chiropractor, but something more than that. And he was actually living with this guy to get him up to speed to be able to go on and do some more shows. And this guy just happened to also be Elvis's physician as well. This guy said, I've got this very important client. I can't tell you who it is. Turned out to be Elvis. When Elvis heard that it was Leo, he was a big fan. He said, would you come? So he said, I'll put you on the phone. So he said, hello, is that Leo Sayer? You know, and that was it. This is Elvis, Aaron Presley, you know, all of this kind of stuff. And he said, I'd like you to come over tomorrow. Maybe we can make some music together and have some fun, you know. So that was it. Went to bed. He died overnight. And sorry, I've not told the story very well.
I get the basics of it. Yeah.
Anyway, so the Zombies, let's begin here. I've heard lots of interviews with you about this posh boy image, which, by the way, wasn't the case, of course, and I've heard you say that many times. Two of the boys with dark rimmed glasses. Not the best start from a PR perspective, or did that actually help to make you different, do you think?
Well, I think we all agree it was a bit of a disaster, to be honest. Some of the band were literally just out of school, and some had been out of school for a few months. And we were directed to the publicity department at Decca. And I think the first thing they said to us is, well, we need an image. You know, it's a very contrived conversation. You know, we need an image for you. What have you been doing? And I don't know who, but I think somebody said, well, we've only just left school. We haven't had much chance to do anything. I said, oh, school. And then they started concentrating on that side of things, which I've always thought that, you know, especially with young bands, people want danger. They want brigands, pirates, these kind of people in bands, not geeky schoolboys. And unfortunately, we got landed with this kind of image. This is way back in the 60s, but your original image tends to follow you around. It keeps cropping up, you know, and we still get original photos from the early shoots where this was another disaster. They would say, jump up in the air and pull funny faces. And those pictures still follow us around now.
I've seen those. I've seen that picture.
Yes, all in all, those the image, you know, and everything was written about us and the photographs. I don't think they did the band any good at all, any favors at all. I mean, we're just normal people. We just happened to be quite young. Yeah, we had just left school, but that's true of lots of bands, but they don't feature on that part of their life. In many ways, it doesn't matter now. It's such a long time ago, but I don't think they did us any favors, really. It just, to use that word I just started off with, it was just very contrived, artificial, and I don't think it really worked.
Not at all. And Rod Argent was going to be the lead singer, wasn't he?
It was. When we first started, I mean, the whole band was Rod's idea. He'd seen his cousin, Jim Rodford, play, and the big St. Albans band, they were called the Blue Tones, and Russ knows Jim because they were both in the Argent later on.
Big pals, yeah.
And once he saw his cousin, Jim Rodford, play, he just wanted to have a band, and he put the band together in quite an unusual way, really. They had an army corps at his school, and he watched the side drummers march by, and he thought Hugh Grundy had the best rhythm of the side drummers. And he literally just he didn't know him, and he just went up to him and said, do you want to be in a band? And that was it, really. Hugh said, yeah, sure. And then there was a folk club at his school, and Paul Atkinson was probably the best guitarist in that folk club. And again, Rod went up to him, didn't know him, and said, do you want to be in a band? And he agreed. So there's three people that don't really know one another. They happen to be at the same school. And then Rod had got a friend who lived in the next road called Paul Arnold, didn't go to school with him. He was making a bass guitar in woodwork. He'd never played one. And he asked him if he wanted to be in the band. He said, yes. And he said, I've got a mate at school. So I don't know any of these people, really. I've got a mate at school who's got a guitar. That was me. And so I've always thought at our school, it was quite a strict school, and you had to sit in alphabetical order. And Paul Arnold sat in front of me, Colin Blunstone. If we hadn't sat in alphabetical order, I probably wouldn't have been invited to join the Zombies. Because Paul Arnold turned around one day and said, my friend's putting a band together. You've got a guitar, haven't you? And I said the fatal word, yes. Yeah. He said, well, do you want to be in it? So we got together. And originally, yes, I was going to be the rhythm guitarist and Rob was going to be the lead singer. But two things happened. One was it was a Saturday morning. We had a coffee break in the middle of the rehearsal. It was in the Pioneer Club in St. Albans. And Rob went over to an old broken down piano in the corner. If that piano hadn't been there, who knows how things might have been different. And he played Nut Rocker by B. Bumble and the Stingers, and it's a rock and roll take on a classical piece. He was in such a different league to us. It was very obvious, even at that early stage. He was just a wonderful keyboard player, even at 15. And I did say to him, why don't you play keyboards in this band? I didn't know him, remember? I'd only just met him. Why don't you play keyboards in this band? And he said, no, it's a rock and roll band. We want all guitars. And that was that. But as I was putting my guitar away, I was always singing in those days. I sang all the time, walking along the road, anywhere. And I just was singing to myself, putting the guitar away. And Rod heard, just by chance. And he said, I tell you what, if you'll be the lead singer, I'll play keyboards. And that essentially was how the Zombies came together. And just all chance.
I was just trying to visualize, sort of going around and saying, well, I can sing. You saying, well, I can sing. And then all of a sudden you just belting out that voice and seeing their faces and going, what? Where did that come from? But obviously it didn't quite happen like that. But
no, it didn't at all. No. I always slightly got the feeling that there's a bit of a division between a band and if there's just someone singing. And eventually I did play guitar for another couple of years actually on some of the songs, but eventually I dropped that side of things. I sometimes wonder if there isn't a division between the band and the singer, and it's rarely that their jaws drop and they're in awe. It's usually, who does he think he is standing up there prancing about while we're back here making all the music? I think it's a bit more like that, really.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a bad single, was it? She's Not There.
God, what a way to start. Eh?
Written by Rob when he was 18 years old and, helped on its way by George Harrison. Is that right? Absolutely,
yeah. There was a TV program called Jukebox Jury, and four people would vote whether a song was going to be a hit from that week's releases. And She's Not There came on, and George Harrison really liked it and said he thought it would be a hit.
Well, no one told me about her, the way she lied. Well, no one told me about her, how many people cried. But it's too late to say you're sorry. How would I know? Why should I care? Please don't bother trying to find her. She's not there. Well, let me tell you about the way she looked, the way she had hair, the color of her hair. Her voice was soft and cool, her eyes were clear and bright, but she's not there.
And I mean, in those days, to get an endorsement from a Beatle, well, it's the same now. If you got an endorsement from a Beatle, it would be fantastic. It would. But it was, of course, it was wonderful to get an endorsement from him. And it was a hit pretty much straight away. And then a few months later, it was released a little bit later in America. And it went in Cashbox, it went to #1 in America. So when we first arrived in America, which was Christmas 1964, we arrived with the national #1 record, which is a great way to start your career, really. And we opened at the Brooklyn Fox in the Murray the K Christmas show. Murray the K was the biggest DJ in America, and he considered himself the fifth Beatle, though I'm not quite sure what the Beatles would say about that. But that's how he introduced himself. Very powerful guy, very charismatic guy, and he used to put on these shows often at the Brooklyn Fox. It'd be at Christmas and at Easter and a summer show. And so we opened with there's the Shangri-Las, Patti LaBelle, Benny King, the Shirelles. There were about 16 acts. And of course, as we said before, we weren't that long out of school. And here we are playing with all these people that were musical gods to us. And it was a pretty awe-inspiring situation. And we had to actually follow Patti LaBelle, and she had a group with her called the Bluebells at the time. And they were wonderful. Okay. And the audiences loved them, and we had to follow them. So there were a few knees knocking and the side of the stage before we went on. But it was okay. It was fine. It was fine.
Fair play to Rod for writing that when he was 18. I mean, Russ wrote The Lost City for the Shadows when he was 14.
Really?
Yeah, which I just found.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was only a few years later, we can check with him, it was only a few years later that they asked him to do it, I think when he was 18, but he said he wrote it at 14. I mean, when I was 14, I was watching Thunderbirds, you know, it's sort of like, you know what, here he is just writing a hit for the, just crazy. So the first album, Begin Here, it had Sticks and Stones on it. It had Can't Nobody Love You, which I've been fortunate enough to hear you sing with the Zombies live in fairly recent times. But the song, The Way I Feel Inside, the one that starts with the footsteps and ends with footsteps and a coin, was the track that for me really showcased your voice at such an early stage and maybe the shape of things to come. Would you agree with that?
Well, I mean, to a degree, I think I would, yeah. It's funny how when you record these songs, you don't think about them all that much. It's just another track on the album. Yeah. I think we might have tried to play it originally with the band playing as well, but it didn't really work. And so we just had this idea of just having my voice on there. At the time, it's just kind of move on to the next track. But I've got a great deal of affection for that track now. And in fact, the last few years with the Zombies, we've ended the show with that song, Just Rod and Me and that song. And it's a beautiful song.
Should I try to hide the way I feel inside my heart for you? Would you say that you would try to love me too? In your mind, could you ever be really close to me? I can tell the way you smile. If I feel that I could be certain, then I would say the things I want to say tonight. But till I can see that you'd really care for me, I will dream that someday you'll be really close to me. I can tell the way you smile. If I feel that I could be certain, then I would say the things I want to say tonight. But till I can see that you'd really care for me, I'll keep trying to hide the way I feel inside.
It's really, really lovely. It is a favourite song of mine now. Sometimes you need a bit of distance, don't you, from a recording before you really understand how you feel about that track. I often think you need probably 2 years after you've recorded something. And if you go back and you'll discover your true feelings about that track. And that is definitely a favourite track for me.
And also when you consider how quickly it was, and I know you recorded those albums very, very quickly.
Yes.
Probably more quickly than you would have liked.
Yes.
To the point where I'd never noticed it, but you're going to tell us that you mumbled in Tell Her No, aren't you?
Oh, well, absolutely. I don't think, depends what album you're listening to, but I wasn't on the original album. Tell Her No was a little bit later, I think.
Yeah.
But we were recording through the evening and it was kind of a day off from a tour, I think. We were all very tired. And they'd probably done 3 or 4 backing tracks. It was recorded, everything was recorded very quickly. And I was sitting in the control room as I wasn't playing, and I fell asleep. And they sort of woke me up to go and sing. I was half asleep when I sang Tell Her No. And the first chorus, I definitely mumbled. It's plain if you know it's there.
From your arm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said to the producer, well, can we just drop in and replace that bit? He was going, oh, don't worry about that. That's fine. And maybe he was right, because it went to number 6 in America. And no one ever said, well, I'm not buying that record because you're mumbling through the first chorus.
Exactly.
So maybe the producer was right. But it is a fact that
I've heard the song so many times, Colin, and I'd never noticed it.
No.
But it was brought out by somebody in one of your previous interviews, and so I listened to that. Yeah, okay, now but it doesn't make any difference at all. So we're going to talk about the wonderful Odessey and Oracle. We could talk all night about that, but obviously everybody knows recorded at the prestigious Abbey Road. But literally the day after, the Beatles recorded Sgt. Pepper, and luckily enough, left some instruments hanging about on the floor, I believe. Is that right?
They certainly did.
Yeah.
They left a lot of percussion instruments hanging about. And then I can't remember the name of, what's that keyboard thing that...
Mellotron.
Mellotron, sorry, I was just stuck for the word. John Lennon's mellotron was in the corner, and Rod used that a lot on Odessey and Oracle. I mean, it would be a different album if John hadn't left the mellotron behind. So, I mean, it was a real thrill for us because we were huge Beatles fans, and to just feel. Mostly they recorded in Studio 2, but they did do a few tracks in Studio 3, which is where we were. And they had left some stuff behind, but also they'd left behind some fine recording engineers at the time. I think probably the best recording engineers in the world. Peter Vince and Jeff Emmerich worked on Odessey and Oracle, and they did a fantastic job. We were so fortunate to be in Abbey Road at that time with those engineers. It was magical. And everything was so easy when you're working with recording engineers like that. You know, it all happens.
Yeah.
You obviously you have to know what you're doing, and because we had such a small budget, we knew the songs, and we hired a village hall in Hertfordshire where we came from. I can't remember where it was, and for about 2 weeks we just played through the tracks from the album. And so when we went into the studio, we knew what the songs were, what the keys were, what the arrangement was. We're just looking for a performance. And so we could record really quickly. I don't know why everyone doesn't do that all the time. It seems like a pretty sensible idea. Yeah.
Yeah, quite. Well, Time of the Season and Care of Cell 44. Eventually came the commercial songs, and I know there's different ways about how they became popular. But I always do, I'm sure I remember Kenny Everett either having you guys on the show or really talking about the song after it started to take off. Were you on the show? Were you and Rod on the show?
Strange enough, I was on the show separately, and Chris and Rod was on the show as well.
Right.
And he loved Odessey and Oracle, and he made a very valid point that the band disbanded after the first single was released in the UK and wasn't successful. And we had been struggling for some time, especially in the UK. And he said, wouldn't it have been better to have held the band together till at least the album was released? And in retrospect, of course, it makes more sense. But
hello, zombies.
Hello, Ken.
Oh, hang on, I'll turn your microphone on. There you go, say it again.
Hello, Ken.
That's better. I hear you've all split up then.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, we've been slogging away for 3.5 years, and we got a new record deal, a little while ago when we were producing all our own records and things, and we thought we'd give this a go. And in fact, we've produced an LP, which is coming out soon, and done all the cover and everything on it.
Yeah.
And this hasn't, the last record was from the LP, and nothing happened to it. So
how long has the LP been out?
No, it's out on the 19th, in actual fact.
Well, wouldn't it be better to wait until the LP is maybe a huge success and then decide whether to go?
Well, if the LP is a huge success, then maybe we'll come back again.
Come back in again, okay. Oh well, here's the single, folks. Bye, 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 keep 'em in. We can't afford to lose lovely groups,
I think we just felt it was time for a change. I went on the show, and he managed to get Care of Cell 44 backing track playing without my voice on it. So this is live on, I think it was Capital Radio, wasn't it? He was on.
Yes.
And it was very early in the morning as well. And he said, "Well, Colin, sing along with this." And it was live on the radio, sort of 8 o'clock in the morning. And so I had to sing along with Care of Cell 44. But I mean, I was a huge fan of Kenny Everett, and he probably was the only DJ who really rated Odessey and Oracle.
Album of the century, Odessey and Oracle, available in your local shops.
And this will be our year. Took a long time to come.
Oh, well done, zombies. Don't forget, Odessey and Oracle, 37.6 or whatever it costs in your local shop. Buy it today. Actually, I should have played this before I played the record.
And now from our featured album of the century.
It really wasn't, it didn't get the reaction we were hoping for, either from the critics or from a commercial point of view. It just, nothing happened with the album. And it took a long time, but then it started to get attention in America, and particularly this track, Time of the Season. Again, it took months for it to, there's one DJ in Biloxi, Idaho, or somewhere like that, just kept playing it. And we're eternally grateful to that DJ. I'm not sure if I've got the right town, but one guy just kept playing it. And in a way that probably couldn't happen now, other DJs around there started playing it, and gradually it spread across the country. So after about 6 months, it's in the top 10, and again in Cashbox, it went to number 1. It was always a little bit, She's Not There and Time of the Season were sort of 2 or 3 in Billboard, but at the time Cashbox had the same authority as Billboard did, and so number 1 in Cashbox was not bad.
It's one of those albums that, as somebody that's played the album as a fan, if you like, that you play in its entirety. Do you know what I mean? You don't necessarily pick up individual tracks. And I love, this is a personal thing, but I love the trilogy of Maybe After She's Gone, Beechwood Park, Brief Candles. They flow so well, I think. And Hung Up on a Dream, which for me is the killer track. And everybody's got their favorite tracks, I'm just sort of blurting out mine at this point. But it is one of those albums, I think, that you can play in its entirety. A bit like Sgt. Pepper, dare I say it. These sort of.
I know what you mean. I think it's very true. I mean, there wasn't an idea behind Odessey and Oracle, really. It's not a concept album in any sense of the word, but it does work as an entity, doesn't it? If you play it through. I mean, the first 3 tracks you mentioned there were all written by Chris White. Yeah. So I think you would find that they will flow more if it's the same writer. But Hung Up on the Dream was written by Rod, and it's a particular favourite of mine as well.
Rippling in the heat, and found that nameless change
just started playing solo gigs again, and I've put that song in my solo set, Hang Up on a Dream.
Brilliant.
And I'm doing it just with, it's not just piano and voice, but it's keyboards and voice. And it goes down incredibly well. It's just a fabulous song.
It is.
Rod wrote that one. It's a wonderful song. Beautiful lyric.
I often like the individual tracks more than the hits, if you know what I mean. And that falls into that category for me. And well, certainly the demand was there for the Zombies to appear on the stage because, you know, retrospectively you'd broken up, and, you know, there were 3 bands in America pretending to be you. I just got to let you tell the story about you writing a letter to try and stop this happening. But it wasn't you that stopped it, was it?
No, but I think that there were 2 periods where there were bands pretending to be the Zombies. Initially, there were 3 bands, and I don't think they were particularly good. And Chris White happened to be in Rolling Stone's offices in New York, and they did a front page story about this. It's the Zombies and the Animals and some other people, where bands were impersonating them. And they said, look, we've got the manager of one of these zombie bands. We've got a contact for him. Why don't you ring him? And Chris White did. And of course, this manager thought he was talking to Rolling Stone. And he told him this story about they put their version of touring as the Zombies in honor of the lead singer who'd been killed in a car crash. And they wanted to keep the zombie name going. And it's quite strange to read an article about your death when you're very much alive and kicking. And that's really the story about those 3. Those bands just petered out in the end. But there was another band much later. It was probably in the 80s, and it was an English band pretending to be the Zombies. They'd found some poor guy called Hugh Grundy, and of course Hugh Grundy was the drummer in the original Zombie. Mm-hmm. This guy happened to be a bass player. He was also about 5'6", and Hugh's about 5'10". So it was a bit hopeless, really, just because he's called Hugh Grundy and have this band around him. And this is the band that I wrote to the Musicians Union and maybe tried some other things to stop them playing. Apart from anything else, we kept getting reports that they weren't very good. And then suddenly they stopped. And I thought, well, I don't know what I did, but obviously something worked. And then the story came back to me. They were playing in a club. They're not very good. They finish the show. They go into the dressing room, and one of the fans goes in and points a gun at them. Now, I don't recommend this as a way of doing business. I really don't. But it is very effective. And he pointed a gun at them and said, "You're not the Zombies. You will not play as the Zombies anymore." And they didn't. They didn't.
That's incredible, isn't it? It's absolutely incredible. And 2, not in that individual case, but originally some of the better, should we say, people trying to be the Zombies included 2 members of ZZ Top.
That's true.
Allegedly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Allegedly. And thank goodness you didn't have any brush with car crashes or anything else. But you did have around, it probably wasn't around that time, going back just a little bit, you did have a little brush with potential somebody pointing a gun at you, I think, when you were on tour with the Velvelettes.
I did. We were in Texas, and I was with Carolyn Gill, who was the lead singer in the Velvelettes. Yeah. And I walked in the hotel with my arm on her shoulder, and seemed quite a natural thing to do. And our tour manager came up to me, obviously panicking, and he'd overheard some other people talking and saying, if he doesn't get away from that girl, he's going to get shot. And so it just takes you back to, I mean, there's still those kind of feelings in the South sometimes, but in the mid-60s, it was a challenging place to tour.
Yeah.
You know, especially if you were a black act, or if you were touring with black acts.
Black acts, yeah.
There was many hotels we couldn't stay at. There were many restaurants we couldn't go into if we were with black artists. It was crazy. It was actually quite weird and a bit scary.
And distasteful, I suppose. Our last guest, Ray Green, the lead singer of Santana, he was saying about his musical hero was Nat King Cole.
Yeah.
And he was saying, a white audience listening to Nat King Cole were very happy for him to entertain them, but when they left, he had to go out the back door. Go out the back door. So I'm gonna fast forward a little bit because I really enjoyed the period, because I went to see you around the time you reformed and know the story behind that. But the Zombies finished. You got together with Rod in 2001 and made what I think was a fantastic album, which was in the name of Colin Blunstone and Rod Argent. It wasn't in the Zombies, called Out of the Shadows, which included Mystify, Sanctuary, both of which you used to do on stage regularly. And I also there's a track on there called A Girl Like That, which I heard you do on that tour, which is written by Russ and Rod.
Yeah.
And I just think to myself, it's just a shame those two didn't write more songs together.
Absolutely. I think that's the only song that Rod's ever co-written.
Yeah.
Is that one song. He always found it difficult to co-write with people, but it's a really good song.
Yeah, it's an amazing...
And I really like that album as well. I'm very fond of that album, and because it was a door opener to a second career. I don't know, in my case, probably a third or fourth career. Rod and I getting back together again, and eventually, Rod very much didn't want to call the band the Zombies, and he would have to explain his true feelings about that. But after about 6 or 7 years, basically that band that we put together, them morphed into the Zombies. We had to talk to Hugh Grundy and Chris White. How did they feel about it?
Yeah.
And they gave us their blessing, and then it became the Zombies. And of course, we used to play. To start with, when we first got back together, we didn't play very many old zombie tunes at all.
No.
But once we changed the name to the Zombies, we were playing a lot of old zombie songs. We were amazed at the interest in the Zombies when we first got back together. I think it was 1999. We hardly played any zombie tunes. We thought people had forgotten about the Zombies, to be honest. And it was a real eye-opener when we started touring that people were always asking for zombie tunes. And also promoters would bill us as Colin Blunstone and Rod Argent of the Zombies. Whatever we asked for, that's how they would bill us. Or even the Zombies.
Well, in 2004, As Far As I Can See came out, which is, again, a very, very strong album. I mean, in my mind, a miracle. What a track that is. I Want to Fly. What a track that is. And, that was probably around the first time that you branded the album as the Zombies. And a version of I Don't Believe in Miracles, actually, if I may say.
We did do, yeah.
So let's move on with the albums. Breathe In. Sorry, I always go Breathe In, Breathe Out. Breathe Out, Breathe In 2011. And Still Got the Hunger in 2015, and of course A Different Game in 2023. So it's fabulous that these sold so well, and you were recording new material for me, because I want to ask you about Any Other Way, the song that you wrote, because there's 3 versions of that, if I'm not mistaken. Because when you were showcasing it live, it was quite an upbeat version of it. When it came onto the album, the Zombies album, it wasn't quite as fast. And then there's a live version on the Metropolis Studios album live, which is the version that you did in the at the outset when you were showcasing it. And then you did it also on your solo album, didn't you?
I did it with strings.
With strings, yeah,
with a wonderful Chris Gunning arrangement. And Chris Gunning worked on a lot of my first solo album. So Say You Don't Mind was the big hit on that album, and Chris Gunning did an incredible arrangement on that. And then Any Other Way, there were, I think there were 5 songs that Chris Gunning did arrangements on that album.
Still remember seeing you standing there, alone in a crowded room. Suddenly your presence filled the air. There's nothing that I could do. Always knew you were the only one. I never told you so. Thought you'd understand what I had done, and I had to let you go. Thought that we could prove ourselves, show that we were strong. Should have written every day. Now I know that I was wrong. If there was any other way, don't you think I would have found it by now? Found a way around it somehow. If there was any other way.
Still Got the Hunger includes a newly recorded version of Want You Back Again, which was endorsed by Tom Petty, and there's versions of him doing that song, which is unbelievable. But again, another song that you wrote called Now I Know You'll Never Get Over You, which I think is a lovely song. Really
Now I Know I'll Never Get Over You,
Don't leave me now, not after all this time. We can work it out. Now I know I'll never get over you. Seasons come and go, but this feeling never changes. I still love you so. Now I know I'll never get over you. It's alright if you wanna spend some time alone. It's alright if the words won't come. I can wait till you're tired of living on your own. Now I know I'll never get over you. Every word you say, every little thing you do takes my breath away. Now I know I'll never get over you.
Very often I get my ideas from songs about things that are happening in real life. It's a kind of a trigger, what's happening in real life.
Yeah.
And I noticed that when you come back from a tour, you're longing to get back home. From the minute the tour starts, you're longing to get back home. Well, when you come back after 6 or 7 weeks away, often there's a little bit of a distance when you first get back. You have to get used to one another again. And that's what triggered the idea of that song, that even though you're dying to get home and you love all your family, of course you do, but there's a little bit of a strangeness in the air when you first come home. It just takes a day or two to relax and get back into normal family life. And that was the trigger for that song.
Right. That's a really lovely song. And again, the album flows very nicely, I think, Still Got the Hunger. Which brings us finally to Different Game, because I ought to mention that. It's another great album. That track dropped Reeling and Stupid.
Yes.
What
I think that's
title.
It's one of my favourite tracks. It is really, really good.
I feel self-alone. reason to live. To know we shared something so strong. Suddenly it's just gone. Don't you know that now I'm staring down to tomorrow? I feel so much change. You leave me standing in sorrow. Misery is my name. I don't want love to be something no one can see. Why do you treat me so mean? You gave me my life. Why do you treat me so bad? Let me creeping tonight. How can it be so wrong that yesterday was so strong? You got me scattered in pieces. How can I get along now, feeling like I'm dropping, breathing and stupid? I feel like a fool. You leave me frozen and naked. The way you treat me's not cool. Stop being so cruel. You know you make me feel bad. Stop being so mean. You're everything that I had. Yeah. And of course, that by then we'd realised that we really like to record live with the band. I think we did it on the album before, as we did on the album before, and on this one we got everyone in the studio together, because with a lot of bands, you know, they're never in the studio together recording. But we just found that there was a special energy when we were all in there playing. It's almost like a live album, but played under studio conditions. And a lot of the lead vocals are how I sang with the band. They would always say they play differently if I'm singing with them. And I definitely sing differently if I'm singing with them. Why that should be, I'm not quite sure. But we really enjoyed that, playing live in Rod's studio. And it was great fun doing that album.
Yeah. Well, you're going to leave the Zombies there. Obviously, I wanted to wish Rod a speedy recovery. I hope he's back doing something with you soon.
I'm sure he will be. I spoke to him yesterday, and he sounds really good. I mean, day by day, he's getting stronger.
That's great news, because I know he did a video message to all the fans, didn't he? Which was at the end of the Zombies Begin Here, Zombies and Friends evening, which was great. But in the meantime, you know, thank you for talking about the Zombies. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed that. A big thank you to Colin Blunstone for a fascinating insight into the Zombies, and Colin in particular, of course. Some great anecdotes and stories there. And did you also notice what an underrated songwriter Colin is in his own right? So that's all for now, but the good news is that Colin and I will return in part 2 when our chat focuses on his brilliant solo career. That's coming in a few weeks, so I look forward to welcoming you back next time here on the Voices of Russ Ballard podcast.
Hi, it's Ray Green from Santana, and you're listening to the Voices of Russ Ballard podcast.
How was I to know? I should have known better.
Hi, this is Russ Ballard, and you're listening to the Voices of Russ Ballard podcast.